I love nostalgia. I love talking about the old days. I love talking about happy times and memories and things like that. Going back and talking with friends about things that went down in our lives, like fun stuff, the big events. But sometimes the things that really bring you back, like really super bring you back, are the random little mundane things that were just regular features or just like figments of your life. Rather than like the huge event, it was where you got your soda from or something like that. That's what I was thinking about that brought me to this entire thought process that I thought that I would bring to all of the new goths and bring some nostalgia for the older ones too. One of the things that kind of made me think about really what life was like living in the 90s as a goth was where we got our concert tickets, particularly where I lived in my neck of the woods. I lived on Long Island, right outside Manhattan, and we would get our concert tickets from the Ticketmaster, which was a secret booth located in the fitting room of a TJ Maxx in like Patchogue, Long Island. And from what I understand, it was basically the only one. So people would come from all over. Despite the fact that it was the only one, there was never a line. Whenever I went there, I usually walked right up, got my tickets, and I was good to go. And what made me laugh and think about it was the situation between Robert Smith really duking it out with Ticketmaster because of the crazy ticket prices and the fees that they were tacking on, and him going to bat for the community and be like, no, that's not what's going to happen. What is better? Because nowadays we can get our concert tickets, we can get them online, we can get them so easily. We just go online, you get your tickets, and you're good to go. But back in the day, there was more ceremony around it, and you made more of a day of it. It was more of an event to go get your concert tickets. We went like, yeah, we're going to spend our day, we're going to go to the mall, and then we're going to go and we're going to get food, and then we're going to go get our drinks, and we're going to bring them to the Ticketmaster. We're going to buy our tickets for the big show, whatever show it happened to be. And back then, our drinks was not Starbucks. Back then, our drink was like an 80-cent Big Gulp Slurpee from 7-Eleven. And those Slurpees would have had like 7 different flavors because you just go down the line and it's like, it wasn't a matter of, oh, I can't decide. This one's my favorite. This one's a flavor. No, you went down the entire row and you got every single one. And we had our trick too, because you get the bubble top, and this is how you get the most out of it. Put the bubble top on, and since it's like a dome that kind of it rises about 2 inches above the cup, you fill it with that on and you go all the way up to the very tippy top till it comes out like this much above the top. And that's like a free sip right there. You just kind of like eat that off the top. And that's what we do. And then we bring our Slurpees with us and brain freeze and all and go and buy our goth concert tickets while you had your normie folk trying on their clothes from TJ Maxx, going in and out of the fitting room, and they had no idea what the thing was, what we were doing. And it was almost like it was a secret thing that only alternative people knew. But yeah, it was just things like that that make me think about how different things were. And I was thinking about when I first got involved in the subculture and what differs between then and now, and also what I would change and what info could I have used as a baby bat? Like, what did I believe going into the goth subculture, or just becoming alternative in general? Things that I believed that I must do or I must be in order to be involved, which were so far from the truth. But back when you were younger, we being in groups of teenagers, like all being new to the subculture, we all would hype each other up and then psych each other out. Like, no, we must do these things. You have to do it this way. Like when we would take excursions into the city, we pile on the train going from Ronkonkoma to Manhattan, Long Island Railroad, and we were going to be spending the day in the city. And I remember like one of the things that I don't remember who said it, who perpetuated it, but we all firmly believed it. And it was something that we trained ourselves not to do. Walk straight ahead. Do not look up. Because if you looked up, that meant you were looking up at the skyscrapers. And if you're looking up at the tops, that means you're a tourist. Only tourists want to look up at the skyscrapers. Everybody else that's from the city, they know it's there. So immediately you're outing yourself not just as a tourist, but a poser. So everything always went back to poser because that was the kiss of death. It was so important being new to the subculture. It was so important to us to have that acceptance. And to me as well, like to me it was a really big deal to be accepted. I always wanted to be accepted because I wanted that family. I wanted to be part of the flock. I wanted to have friends, be part of a community. So I pretty much did the most ridiculous things possible because I thought it was true, to make myself more part of the group and not be seen as a poser, because that was, again, like I said, the worst thing that you could possibly be considered. And to be a poser wasn't to be uncool. To be a poser meant that you were false, meant that you weren't a legitimate kind of member of the community. You didn't like things for what they were, and you were being outed as a phony. So I think nowadays people kind of are seeing it more as like, oh, I'm not cool enough. It's not a matter of not being cool. It was a matter of you don't like the music, you don't like the community, you don't like all of the things that come along with it. And that in itself, it was like a shot, like directly through the heart, because I just got Bon Jovi in my head. But it was like a shot directly through the heart, because we loved it so much. I loved it so much. For someone to come out and outright accuse me, and with the utmost of confidence accuse me of not having that very love that I have for the music and for the subculture, and wanting to be a part of it as much as I wanted to, that was like the kiss of death. Now this one was a little bit more, I would say, true, and that was your intelligence. Intelligence, I've said this so many times, was something that's very prized, and this is no offense to the current generation of Gen Z, but so often I hear, it's not that deep, or it ain't that deep. Saying that is kind of intentionally wanting to minimize the thoughts, feelings, or emotions of whoever you're talking to, when in fact you're kind of outing yourself as not having any emotional depth. And that's sad. That's a sad thing, because you want that. There is no shame in having that, and that is something that was like so huge within the subculture, is having that depth. And it wasn't just emotional depth, because everybody was open. Showing emotion or having any kind of emotional depth or kind of expressing yourself, whether it be creatively or emotionally. And what I think was also a misconception was that it was absolutely necessary. Now, what I think was necessary is having at least some form of intellect, be able to hold a conversation, because people were not stupid. Communication was a big thing, and it wasn't cool to be dumb. But what was really kind of, to me, felt like it was something that was integral that you must do, is you must have some level of creativity in some way. You had to be a writer, you had to write music, you had to write poetry, you had to do something in the lines of creativity. You had to be an artist of some kind. And if you did not, you were a poser. So I would force myself to basically do everything. I am a mediocre artist. I can draw. You can tell what it is, but you will not see my art hung in any museum any day soon. I could write poetry, meaning I can rhyme, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to write things that you're going to want to read, because most of the time it starts out well-meaning, but it always ends with potty humor. I hid my potty humor from the public like I was hiding buried body. I think one of the main lessons that I learned, and I didn't learn it till a good few years later, is that creativity is not an integral component to being goth, because that's something that's intrinsic to the person. Another thing that was a huge misconception was the idea that I had to know everything. And to know everything meant to know everything musically, but not just musically, but about the band, about the entire discography of that band, about the history of each band member, and what side projects they may or may not be affiliated with, and making sure that you had all of that info stored in the bank, because you would be quizzed on it. It wasn't something that happened regularly. Every now and again you would get the pretentious folk to come over and quiz you, but luckily we were prepared. Now this is something that happened way back when in the 90s, and these incidents were few and far between, and you only really saw it on rare events. And it happened to me, I think, I want to say once, but the majority of the inquisition that we would actually get came from our peers, because we had it so ingrained in our brains that we had to know these things, that the other people around us who might have been kind of jerks decided that they wanted to try to use their knowledge against you, and they would turn it into like a Trivial Pursuit or Jeopardy of all things goth, which was utterly ridiculous, because you just went out and you wanted to have fun. I'm not here for a pop quiz, guys. I just want to dance to this song. So does this thing kind of happen nowadays? Yes, sort of. It happens in online spaces, and it happens among people that don't really integrate in real life spaces. And the thing about real life spaces is they are so excited to see people in real life integrating, participating, and being part of it, They're not going to act like that. So long as you're able to survive the jerks online, you're not going to encounter that kind of thing in person. So that was another thing that I thought that I had to do, which was so not true. You don't have to know the entire history of every single goth band that ever existed. Don't do things because you think it's important to everyone else. The only thing to do that would be important to everybody else is just to be considerate. Another thing that I vitally believed is that when you went to clubs, you leave the DJ alone. You can make requests. However, if you were curious as to what a band was, don't you dare ask. Because if you ask, you're admitting that you don't know who it is, and that gets you branded a poser. Luckily, I grew out of that because I would have missed out on knowing quite a lot of really cool bands if I didn't. But just be confident and don't worry about it. Remember, smart people are the ones that ask questions. Smart asses are the ones who think they know everything. Another thing that I believed and wholeheartedly believed, and this is when I really first got involved, is that the whole concept of spirituality or being a witch and goth went hand in hand. That once you became a goth, you naturally, okay, you need to study the occult, you need to become part of this, you need to sage things, you need to practice spells in your backyard and things like that. I'm going by what I remember back then, that this was something they were part and parcel, that you couldn't possibly be Jewish or Catholic or Christian or Lutheran or Protestant or Muslim or anything like that, or have any sort of conventional faith and be part of the subculture. No, you're a goth, you're a witch. Totally not true. And I believed that wholeheartedly for longer than I care to admit, but it wasn't until later that I'd actually met goths of different faiths that it kind of opened my eyes to all of these new people. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. So these things don't go hand in hand. But fortunately for me, the concept of being more of an eclectic person spiritually fit. It fit more than anything else did. This wasn't necessarily something that I believed must be achieved in order to be a goth, but it was something that I just thought was the way that it was. Because it was something that I saw constantly, and I was like, oh, okay, this is the way it works. Goth girls dated rivet heads. Goth girls will always have industrial boyfriends. That's the way it goes. And the reason now I realize that I felt that way is because coming up in the scene, a lot of my male friends, they were rivet heads. They listened to goth music, and I learned a lot of the goth bands that I love today from them. But they expressed sort of physically more rivet head, more industrial, and they also had industrial bands. And all of the girls within our group, we were goths, and they all kind of intermingled and dated each other. It was kind of weird, went on for years, but luckily I branched out. When it comes to misconceptions and things from babybats, things I get asked are things that you would think, being part of the scene for a long time, you'd think, well, it's not really a big deal, right? Like, why would they think that? Well, why would they know? They're new. One thing I get asked a lot is, I have brown hair. Can I be a goth with brown hair? They automatically assume, okay, I got to dye my hair black. Do you know the rainbow of hair colors that exist within the subculture? You absolutely no. You do not have to dye your hair some unnatural color, or you don't have to dye it black. You can have any color you want. You want to keep your natural color, you keep your natural color. So that was one of the things that I get asked a lot, like, do I have to have an unnatural hair color? Do I have to dye my hair black? Absolutely not. You don't have to dye your hair black. Another question that I get is, well, what if I don't like to wear makeup? So what? You don't have to wear makeup to be part of the subculture. Music is the core. It is the beating heart of the subculture. And when it comes to fashion or style or aesthetic, that's down to you. If you want to dress up, you dress up. You don't want to dress up, you don't do it. And it's not going to change anything. It's not going to make you any more, any less of a goth if you don't want to put makeup on, or you don't want to dye your hair, or you don't want to dress up. That's another one I get. Do I have to dress up? No, absolutely not necessary. I think that obviously fashion is subjective, but when it comes to being in the subculture, it's always going to come down to the music, always. So dress how you want, wear your makeup however you want, or don't, dye your hair whatever color you want, or don't. And it's honestly, it's not an issue. But these are things that I thought were an issue back in the day, because when I first became a goth and I had other friends in the subculture, we all did the same thing. Either bleached our hair platinum or dyed it black. I wasn't one of the platinum people. I went straight to black, and I never looked back. I've used the same hair dye, which is nice and easy, natural blue black, 1B, not 2B, for many, many years. And yeah, I don't know if I foresee any change. The only time that I think I foresee a change is when I begin to go gray. Because when I go gray, the contrast between gray and black is going to be so stark, it's going to look awful. So I made the decision that when I start to go gray, I'm just going to go pastel with the hair. I'm just going to let myself go gray, and then I'm going to kind of bleach it to a platinum white, and then just put some fun sort of purple dye over it, and that's going to be my new hair color, because I'll be damned if I'm going to be the one walking around with black hair and gray roots. It's not a good look. Not going to do it. I don't know if this one was a misconception that I had or an insecurity that I kind of imposed on myself, but when I first started going out to goth events, I made sure that every song I danced to, I knew the words to, even if it wasn't English. I would just sound out whatever language it was in, write it down, and memorize it. And if I didn't know the words, I wouldn't dance to it. So I had a library of lyrics in my head. I wonder if I still have that level of memory now, if I practiced it. But if I didn't know the words to the song, I was not going to dance to it, because damn it, if I'm dancing to it, I'm lip syncing along with it. And I still do that today. Now I will dance to a song if I don't know the words to it, but if I do, I'm going to be lip syncing along, and I can't stop myself from doing that. So it's, back then it felt like something that was a necessity, because by me doing that, I was conveying to other people that I know this band, I'm legit. I know when you're new in the scene, so many of these things you can convince yourself that are so almighty important and integral to be part of the subculture, but in actuality are just insecurities and boundaries that we've somehow placed on ourselves, or someone else, one of our peers, had said and stuck into our head, or some moron in a thread somewhere online who's never set foot in a real life goth space has decided to sort of perpetuate when they know absolutely nothing, and cause other people, the new people, to have insecurities, which I hate. And when I see that, I try to call it out, but you can't get all of them. I know there's so many that I'm probably forgetting, but I'm curious to hear yours. What were your insecurities or your misconceptions or preconceived notions about entering the subculture that you absolutely believed is gospel, and you realize now is so false, and you kind of laugh at yourself for having those beliefs? I'm curious. But for everyone else, if you're new in the subculture, I hope that some of this information has helped you. And remember, don't take things so seriously. It's okay, because when you take stuff too seriously, you don't have fun. And that's what this is all about. It's about having fun. And no one's going to quiz you on it. So until next time, bye.